kind of better than the radio, because radio is a dying trend, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. It's so crazy to me that people even like still do that for a living.
I worked at a station for a year.
You did?
Yeah, I worked at a radio station for a year. I was an intern in college.
Yeah.
And it was very much, they were transitioning from kind of being a radio station to like being a television station.
Oh, interesting.
But like their bread and butter was local sports. So they were, and they were the only one really. So they had like a lot of backbone to that.
I feel like that's the way to do it. Like in a local town, like that's all anybody really cares about anyway is sports. So like if you can at least talk about that, some people will.
Yeah. And so it was interesting because like, it's Richmond, Kentucky. So like there was one guy. Yeah. Everybody went to EKU, but there was like one guy. I forget his name. He was going to UK. Yeah. So he was like the talk of the town. So it was really neat.
Wait. So like, was he playing at UK? He was just like attending UK.
He committed to UK.
He committed to UK.
I don't know if he still plays there. I don't keep up with football enough.
Okay.
But and like the story went like, a recruiter from UK went to see another player. Okay. And like, oh, this guy on the other team's really good. Let's get him instead. Yeah. So it was kind of a weird coincidence, but it was still pretty cool to see, to be a part. I wasn't even a part of. I was just, for a senior year, I ran a video camera.
Yeah. You're just like there in like you're filming the thing that's happening and it's a cool moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was a big old boy.
Really?
I want to think his last name was Wood or something like that.
Okay.
I don't remember his first name.
So you don't know if he still plays?
I don't. I should have looked it up.
How many years ago was that?
I graduated in 22, so in 22.
22, okay. Yeah. So, I mean, he could very well still be there.
He could still be there, yeah, for sure.
All right, so, ladies and gentlemen, Talk Zone, welcome. This is the show. Today, my guest is the one and only Jericho Puckett.
Well, howdy.
And, Jericho, you are a comedian.
Attempting to be one.
You're attempting to be a comedian. Well, we're attempting to do a podcast, so that works out.
It lines up.
And we're going into this hot because we were chit chatting. I was like, this shit's too good. We got to get it on tape.
Oh man.
But anyway, so we were talking about improv. Let's I just because and this is be masturbatory for me because I just did some improv last night. But what were you saying? Let's get back into it.
It was I don't know if I should say a surreal experience, but it's the only word that comes to my head. Yeah, that you posted that you were doing that, and that's so not a thing where I come from.
And you come from Irvine,
a small Eastern Kentucky town called Irvine.
Irvine, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and so that was like I've done 2 stand-up shows there. Okay, and that was kind of a foreign experience to most people.
Where do you do the show? In Save-A-Lot?
No, yeah, I wish. No, it was a little Mexican restaurant in town that I eat at really frequently. Yeah, and like I've just come to know the owners, and they're like, "You should do a show here," and I was like, "Can I?" And they were like, "Yeah." I was like, "Cool."
So that's so sweet.
It was neat. Yeah,
dude, that's fucking tight though. Yeah. You did stay. First of all, how many comedians are there out there really who could say I did stand up at a Mexican restaurant? Like, you know, like it's usually like, you know, mariachi band. Yeah. You know, like, so let me ask you this. How did it go?
So we did 2. The first one we did was an open mic. Okay. And we also turned it into a competition. Okay. So like the crowd got to vote on a first and second place. Yeah. And we got some like notable names from like the local area, and then we had a closer who's a bigger name comedian named Joe Deuce. He closed it out for us. Okay. And I don't know if we stepped on toes or anything, but 2 local people won the competition that had never done comedy before. So kind of some of the people that came in were like, eh.
Oh shit.
Yeah, but I mean
was it the audience decided who won? Is that how it worked?
Yeah, so we had planted 3 judges. And the comedians did not know who the judges were. Okay. Yeah, and then we did an actual show that I hosted, and we had Mike Fields was the guy who was the headliner. Okay.
He does Caravan sometimes, right?
Yeah, he's actually doing the show with me tonight. Really? He's on that lineup, yeah.
Oh, you're at 10:20 tonight, right?
Yeah, I'm at 10:20 tonight doing the Lexington versus Louisville show.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, it really is. But that show went a lot better in terms of like people being interested in comedy.
Yeah.
But like that was also whenever you got into like the people who enjoy comedy to drink were there.
Okay, sure.
So you had like a couple hecklers that we
also known as alcoholics.
Yeah, alcoholics, true. But yeah, there were some instances there, so it's kind of scared me off from doing another one, but they really want me to do one, and I need to do another one down there.
I could see it, and it sounds like you took some precautions to prevent this from happening, but I could see it turning into a thing where like you've got like, you got your local guys there, and then you have the people there because it's a small town, and it's like, well, we know these guys, we're gonna vote for them, right?
Yeah,
because we like them, they're us. Of course they're gonna win,
It'll be one of those things. I don't think I'll ever do a competition version of it again.
Okay.
Just because I've gotten to know a lot of people in the scene that are like are asking me to do one, and I'm like, and I think making it a competition kind of takes it out of it for the comic.
Okay.
So I don't think I'll do it, but like I need to have another open mic just because a lot of people, even local people, are like, I want to attempt it. Mm-hmm. I want you to do one, and I'm like, I'm just trying to get time.
Yeah, I get that. You're just looking for an excuse to go up on stage.
Exactly.
Which, to be fair, like I totally get that. Like, I just started doing stand up in January of this year, and I'm not doing, again, we've talked about this. Like, I'm not doing nearly as many mics as I really think I should be, and so I'm averaging like, we'll say like maybe 3 a month, right?
Yeah.
And so when the competition around here started, I was like, I can't fucking do this shit. Like, it would be nice to go up and just to get time, but I'm also like, I'm intimidated. I just started. I don't think I can do this. It
was, I kind of had a similar experience whenever I first got into stand-up.
Okay.
I started at Comedy Off Broadway.
And just real quick, how long have you been doing it?
I started in June of last year, so I'm right at a year and a half almost.
Cool.
But I was super nervous to get on stage, and I went to their open mic. It was a monthly mic. Mm-hmm. I went to it for a year before I ever got on stage. And the thing that I was like, okay, I can do this, was I watched a guy just bomb on stage. And to the point, he made his opening joke, and it was a racial joke. And this was a very white... He wasn't even underage. He was too young to be in the club. He had to get parental permission to go up.
Jesus, okay.
And he made a joke about a disabled black man, and
it's a risk.
Yeah, he did not get a laugh, and the one black man in the back of the room went, "Ooh!" And I remember sitting there feeling so bad for this kid, and all he did was go, "Will I?" And then he walked off stage and walked out the door. And I was like, I can do this. I can definitely do this. So ever since then, anytime like I feel intimidated, I think back to that kid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can do this. If he had the gut, and he came back like 2 months later.
He did?
Yeah. And then he did the joke and turned it around and actually got a decent laugh out of it.
Oh, okay.
I was like, if he has the guts to make that joke and come back and make it better, I can do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you saw that, you're like, come on, right?
I can do this. Easy, I can do this.
I don't know what made me think I could do it. I think I just, I've been watching stand up my whole life, and I think it's something that I've always wanted to do, and I just never had the balls to do it. And I think maybe that's what it was. Just going to enough open mics, seeing enough people just do not even terrible, just like mediocre, and be like, oh. Well, I can do that.
Yeah. Seeing like a non-professional have a decent set, you're like, no, I can do that. That's how I think. I've seen Bert Kreischer and Gabriel Iglesias and Ron White. And like even to this day, I'm like, I cannot do what they do.
Yeah.
But then like I go to a local show, and they have like a local comedian who like I'm becoming fans of a lot of local guys, and they have really good sets, and I'm like, okay, I think I can do that good.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a slow burn.
Do you think? Let me ask you this, and we can, we don't have to. We can cut this if we need. But
okay.
Do you think we piss anybody off by saying who some of our favorite locals are right now? I don't know a lot of names, but a few of them I'm like, I know I like that person, this person.
Comedy's subjective, so we could say whoever we like, and then just say that. And be like, listen, I've become. There's one guy, and he is. Beat me out of 2 competitions. He beat me out of the Louisville competition, and he beat me out of the one of the Cincinnati competitions. Nathan Alexander is a hilarious comedian. I love him.
Yeah.
Jake Hovis is a guy I've seen a few times.
Yep,
I think
he's killer.
hilarious.
He's gotten best comedian for Leo a couple years now.
Yeah. These are Louisville comics. I know a couple people in other towns, but who else? Lena Beamish is very funny. Comedian.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah,
she's got personality too. Like a lot of people go up there and they're just like a gray blob of a person.
Yes,
and she's like Rainbow Bright. If Rainbow Bright lived in this world, and was still trying to be Rainbow Bright.
Yeah, she has made this joke, and it was her opener one time. It's like and it's just an observation. Like she very much dresses like Miss Frizzle.
Yeah,
and and she leans into that, and that's her style of comedy.
Yes.
So I don't know those three in Louisville. Another one I've kind of, I don't know when she started. Lynn Benson. She's a teacher. She's an older lady. I love Lynn to death. Those four people are kind of like, if I see that I'm on, Louisville Comedy Club's open mic or the Caravan with those people, I get excited seeing their names because I get to hear their set.
I love it when she cusses.
Oh man,
she's got that teacher energy.
She does. She really does. Oh man, those are the four that I'm really excited to see.
That's cool. I like one of my personal favorites, and I have very like. Because again, I'm still new, and I'm like, I'm kind of in that like, I know you, hi. I'm not necessarily like hanging out, but I'm like, hey, I see you. We've met, locked eyes. We've said hi. I'm blah, and it's kind of there. But so I would say that I really like Casper Elam.
I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen him one time, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I've only seen him once, but the one time I saw him was a very good performance.
Yeah, he's got this. I mean, his opener is like. I mean, I'm not going to do it, but it's like, I just love how he goes for like these dark jokes.
Yeah,
and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But the fact that he is just like fully committed, it was like that's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Like talking about Casper and like, I wish I were like the ghost because. One, people would actually call me, and I'd be dead.
Yeah.
And also, fuck.
Also, I feel like I don't know if that's his real name or not, but Casper Elam just sounds like a comedian. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that he got on the name gamble there. He got a really good stand-up name.
Yeah, I completely agree. So let me ask you this: how you say you started it a year and a half ago? Did you like, I feel like, and this is the first time I've really had a chance to like really have a full like in-depth conversation with another comic.
Yeah.
Did you grow up watching stand-up?
It was one of those things that I don't know. I guess I wouldn't say I grew up a comedy fan. I was always into more other things, but it was one of those things that would come on and I wouldn't change the channel.
Okay.
But it was the one thing, my parents actively had different tastes growing up.
Okay.
And comedy.
Different from you or different from each other?
All three of us kind of had a different, my mom was watching something here. My dad was watching a ball game or a race here. And I was like playing a video game. Mm-hmm. And I remember the one time that we all kind of got together. I mean, we would watch movies and stuff like once or twice a month together.
Yeah.
But the one thing that stands out to me is we watched a Jeff Dunham special.
Okay.
And that was like the one time we all, and like it lived in our house for like 2 weeks. Like we would just talk about it. And I forget which special it was, but like I think something Insanity was the name of it.
That sounds right. That sounds familiar.
But that was, and I think after that, I kind of got the knack for it, and then I started watching people on YouTube, and that probably came out when I was 11 or 12.
Okay.
And that was whenever people like Gabriel Iglesias really took off, and then I kept up with him, and then
wait, what are you 27?
24.
24. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So that sounds about right.
Yeah, and that was.
Were you guys big on the? And I'm gonna be, I'm super like gonna be typecasty as fuck.
Yeah.
Were you guys into the blue collar boys at all? Jeff Foxworthy, those guys.
Yeah. We definitely were.
Yeah.
I remember having the blue collar comedy tour DVD like
me too.
on the TV stand.
Yeah.
But I remember watching it like once, and I didn't pay that much attention.
Okay.
I remember like we would crack jokes. Like we would make our own. You might be a redneck, or here's your sign, or jokes. But no, it was never really massive in our household, but it was definitely there.
Okay. I will, I'll tell you, I don't know. I mean, I feel like we kind of have similar backgrounds because I grew up in Smithfield, Kentucky, which is about 45 minutes, we'll say north of Louisville, like in the country, on the way to like Cincinnati, and our big claim to fame is we have 2 pilots across from each other.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's your claim to fame.
Yeah, that's the big thing about
that. It's warring territory. The Hatfields and McCoys, but just in Smithfield, Kentucky, the 2 pilot restaurants.
Yeah, we have
gas station.
We have one porn store, and it was real controversial. And the only way they were allowed to operate is if like 70% of their sales came from tobacco sales. So when you go there, it's like they call it cheap smokes. But then you go and it's just like dildos and shit.
Really?
Yeah.
That's such a wild. Irvine had a porn store one time. It was in a single wide trailer.
Really?
Beside a Dollar General. And
it was a trailer?
It was legitimately a single wide trailer.
It's just some guy's house. It's like,
I think it might have been. And I remember being like 12 or 13 and being so curious about like, because at 12 or 13, you knew what porn was.
Hell yeah.
But I was like, what does a porn store in Eastern Kentucky look like?
Yeah.
And sadly, like it closed down like 6 weeks later or something.
Shit.
So I never got a chance to see. But like now as a stand-up comic, it feels like one of my missed opportunities for like a 15-minute bit about comedy, like porn stores in Eastern Kentucky.
Also, that also would have made a great venue for an open mic.
I'm gonna have to do comedy in a porn store before I retire now.
Yeah, I mean, there's this adult store downtown. I think it's called Love Boutique, and it's open 24/7. And I just know this because of talking to other people. I don't know this from experience, but there used to be a second floor that it was just like jerk off rooms.
Really?
Where you just go in and, if you want to buy something downstairs and you're like, well, I don't have anywhere to go.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, just go upstairs and jerk off.
Yeah.
It's fine. And I don't think they have those rooms anymore, but.
I would hope not.
But again, what are they doing with that space?
Yeah.
Let's get an open mic going.
Yeah. Is there a Don't Tell Louisville?
I don't know. What is that?
Don't Tell is a comedy, I guess series is what you would call it. There's one in Lexington and there's one in Cincinnati.
Okay.
And it's essentially like they don't tell you what the lineup is, but they have like massive nationally touring headliners.
Oh, really?
And they will literally, you buy a ticket and then the day of the event, they'll tell you where it's at. So they'll move it around. All the time.
Interesting. Okay.
So back in June, I got to go see David Lucas in a pasta restaurant, like an Italian restaurant. So it was this weird, and it was literally, the room was, tiny.
Yeah.
But it was just like probably 25 people in a little pasta restaurant. It was called a Pasta Garage. It's a great restaurant. I love it.
Okay.
But it was just, you were in the back of it, and all of a sudden, like they didn't tell you who it was, but David Lucas walked in the door, and I was like, what in the world?
Holy shit.
Yeah. So
how was the show?
It was great. David Lucas hated being there. Yeah. It's for 20. He did 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And probably 20 of those minutes were him just being like, "I'm never coming back." And it was he made it funny.
Sounds like they didn't even tell him where he was going to be.
Pretty much. It was literally like there were some great comics on that lineup. One guy out of Dayton, Wyatt Lutz, I think so. You gotta say his name. I've become a fan of his.
Okay,
but he was the last comedian before David, and he just starts murdering.
Yeah,
and then you just see David pull up outside and just like walk in the door, and Wyatt got off and literally just like walked in to the mic and walked back out and got in his car. Like was never really there.
That's a pro right there. It's like if I feel like for me, like I have to I gotta be agonizing about it for like 30 minutes before I go up.
Yeah, I think that's the best part for me about living so far away is I have a 2-hour car ride where I get to just like terrorize myself about how bad I'm gonna do.
Let me ask you this. Do you write while you're driving?
Usually I have my writing done before I start driving. Whenever I'm driving is whenever I'm like formulating the flow. Like I want to go do this joke, then this joke.
I see.
And I will like
the set list.
Yeah, basically. The set list is in the truck for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So wait, how do you, I mean, is it okay that, first of all, is it okay that I'm asking about this?
100%.
This could be like, oh, this is some fucking secret recipe shit here.
I don't believe in, I believe in comedy secrets, of course, but I don't think, someone explaining their writing process is really going to help anyone else out.
Right. Because you still got to do it.
Yeah.
And also, Danny Hux was telling me about this. Like, whatever fucking works for you is what works for you. Like,
exactly.
I was telling him about, because I'm of course so super critical of myself all the time. So I'm like, yeah, I fucking suck at writing. I just won't do it, and then I'll stress write like right before, and then it's usually shitty because I put very little thought into it at all. And he was like. Well, that works for you. Then you keep doing it. I'm like, okay, all right, thanks, Danny. I will do that. So do you just like sit alone and just bang out jokes in like a room or something, or how do you do it?
It all depends. I feel like I have, a few different ways. One thing I've recently tried, and then this is a very cliche thing for me to say, but I feel like most of my writing happens on stage.
Okay.
Because like whenever I first started, the first 6 months, like I would write. I started comedy off Broadway, which only gives you 3 minutes.
Okay.
So I would literally write out verbatim what I was going to say on stage.
Yeah.
And one of the very first things I learned was like the places that I thought the punchline was going to be and like where they would laugh were not the places.
Oh, okay.
They were laughing at different things that I didn't expect.
Yeah.
So I very quickly threw the scripting away.
Okay.
Because I was like, that doesn't work. So now what I'm doing is I'm just kind of coming up with concepts and like things I want to write. Like, I'm trying to write a bit about Lyndon B. Johnson. Lyndon B. Johnson's my favorite president.
Okay.
So I literally just went and...
That's not something I would hear most people say.
There's a long story behind Lyndon B. Johnson, but we can get into it if we need to. But I literally just...
I think we do.
we can definitely get into it. I just wrote taglines for the Lyndon B. Johnson bit. And whenever I got to the end, it was one of those things that I was like, it's going to need a lot of work. And I'm going to like just pick a month where I have like 4 mics scheduled. Okay. And I'm just going to work out the Lyndon B. Johnson bit. But the story behind Lyndon B. Johnson, first off, I got on those like celebrity birthday trackers. Okay. And he's like the most famous person that shares the same birthday as me.
Oh, really?
So yeah, that was my first thing. The second reason is I have a degree in political science.
Dude, me too.
Dude, they are worthless, right? They're worthless.
That's right.
But I think it really...
Oh, wait. You know what? The first time we met, I forgot I did a joke about that.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Nothing.
It got... Yeah. Well, to be fair, there were like 6 people in the caravan that night.
That's true.
But where did you get your political science degree?
Northern Kentucky.
Okay, I got mine in Eastern Kentucky.
Oh, shit,
so there might be some overlap here. Every single... And, some of the people... may know about icebreakers. And, that's the first of every class you have an icebreaker.
Yeah.
Well, EKU's political science department, I don't know if they had it like in some bylaw that this was how every class had to start. But your icebreaker was your name, where you were from, and who your favorite president was.
Okay.
And so I was in the political science program. I started it in 2019.
Okay.
So literally 2020 hit, and it was nothing but COVID and the Trump and Biden presidency.
That's a weird time.
Yeah. So
get that degree.
And then like as you did that, there were only ever 5 answers.
Okay.
It was Trump, Obama, JFK, Lincoln, and Washington. Okay. Every now and then you'd have somebody who'd be like Teddy Roosevelt or FDR or Ulysses S. Grant. You'd have like a history person that would say that.
You can always spot the communists when they say FDR.
Yeah. So, and I didn't want to be like...
Kidding.
Yeah, well, the communists love it. They do. But I didn't want... I think it might have been the comic in me before I was a stand-up comic.
Yeah.
I didn't want to follow that same path.
Yeah, I get that.
So, like, my dad is very big into politics. Very big.
Okay.
And...
Trumper?
No.
Okay.
No.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
No. He's very glad that I'm defending him on this. He's definitely not. So I went to him and I was like, hey, what are some like cool presidents?
Yeah.
And he we talked for like 2 hours one night and we got to Lyndon B. Johnson. And Lyndon B. Johnson was a lot like JFK. He was very much for civil rights and like stuff like that. And he was basically just another term of JFK's presidency. He just wasn't as good at it. And the Vietnam War took a very heavy mental toll on him. So he stepped away.
Yeah.
But his like negotiating tactics are what I love about him. So he would try to like intimidate people. So like people would be waiting to talk to him and he would just like be on the phone in the Oval Office.
Yeah.
And his form of intimidation was like him ordering a pair of pants and being like, I need the crotch extra big. I got a big old set of balls on me. And then like...
That's crazy.
Oh, yeah. And then I even looked this up to make sure I remembered it correctly as I wrote the LB... And it's also LBJ, so that's... A lot of people think LeBron James. I think Lyndon B. Johnson. But... people would just go
That's a funny bit right there.
Yeah. People would just go into the Oval Office to talk to him.
Yeah.
And he would just be on the toilet with the door open, talking to like dignitaries from like other like countries. And he's just like, yeah, I really think we got to stop the Vietnam War. So that's why I love Lyndon B. Johnson, and it was always the answer you could say in those icebreakers.
Yeah.
And the professor would be like, it would be the only time they would stop and be like, "Why Lyndon B. Johnson?" And you could just say those phone calls, and they'd be like, "Next person," like they knew. Yeah. So I love Lyndon B. Johnson.
That's what the hell? What the fuck
is
that?
Siri is talking to me. What are you talking about? Make and receive help phone call. I think it heard me say help. Maybe.
Oh my bad. Gosh. Are you okay? Are you?
It got tired of me talking about Lyndon B. Johnson.
Siri, this is not a domestic violence dispute. Please just leave it alone.
It's like ordering pizza, but talking about presidents. Lyndon B. Johnson is the domestic abuse president.
There's probably some domestic abuse in his past, I'm sure.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, 60s? Come on.
Yeah, every president probably has.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. I can't wait for Kamala Harris's domestic abuse track record to come out.
Oh, my. Yes.
Yeah.
That poor guy. That poor first man.
Yeah.
Oh, he's definitely getting pegged. Well, that's cool. So, all right. So now I have to like probe more because I have this preconception of you and your upbringing being from Irvine. And I think I may be just grafting my own because like I said, I'm from the country. I come from I'm literally like the only person in my family who's not just a big redneck.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and I say that with love, and I say that with joy and and God bless them. See them every year at the reunion, and my uncle Eddie. You can't hear a fucking word he says because it's all just he's got the rebel belt buckle. He's like one of those weed smoking rednecks who like people don't know that like there are some like out in like Marion County, cornbread mafia type dudes who are just like big rednecks, always stoned.
Yeah, that's the one. I think there's constantly overlap in politics, and like especially in Eastern Kentucky, there are very pro-gun Democrats, and then there are very pro-weed Republicans.
Absolutely,
like that's kind of the changeover I've noticed.
Yes. Absolutely. So, but you're saying your dad's not a Trumper. Are you? Yeah. Would you say you come from that kind of family as well, or what? Or is it just like? Is it more like a spot of blue and a red?
No, I think
area.
I think my entire family, other than my dad, is, and I guess me for having a political science degree, is kind of very anti-politics.
Okay.
Like that, none of my family, except if they're trying to mess with my dad, posts like anything political.
Okay.
Like they are very much more like, I don't know, but like my dad was just the one that he was the Democratic chairman of our home county for like 15 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like he's met, he's spoken to Andy Bashir. He knew Steve Bashir. He's
okay. He's actually involved in politics.
Not anymore. He has stepped away. Like he's probably 2014, he was like, I'm going to do other things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I don't think anybody in my family is very pushing. There's one, Dalton is very, but I think he just pushes it to mess with my dad.
Because he knows his dad feels a certain way.
He knows. My dad loves starting Facebook fights.
Okay.
But my dad's the one that like will start the fight in the comment section and then go away from it. And then just come back to read it later. Like he'll make two other people start fighting.
He just starts the war.
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't fight it.
Yeah, he starts the proxy wars. He's very much like the United States government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll facilitate just to, maybe test out some weaponry, see how these things might play out, if we ever have to, but
I mean, I'll give weapons to Palestine, but I'm not sending troops.
No. That would be ridiculous. Okay, cool. So dad is Democrat in a red area. Okay,
yeah,
good to know. Yeah, my family, it's like they aren't super vocal. Most of them are not super vocal about politics. It's more like it's like in the DNA. We're not always concerned about it, but it's there.
Yeah.
I have tried very hard to not talk about politics with my mom because I just know I'm like, we're good. This is going to be a fight.
Yeah.
I can't do it, And so I probably have gone the last 10 years without ever mentioning you're going to,
yeah.
And we were at dinner, we were having lunch a couple of weeks ago and I know she's a Trump gal, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Whatever. I get it. And she just happened to bring up the election and she was just like, oh, I'll be glad when it's over. And it's a mess. I hate it. I'm like, oh, and in my head I was like, oh, is she turning?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And I was like, are you gonna vote? She was like, well, if I make it out there, I will. I don't know if I'll make it out there. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I was like, well, are you planning on voting? She's like, yeah, I'm gonna vote. I was like, are you gonna vote for Trump? Yeah, well, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I was like,
gotta build that wall.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, that's fine. That's cool. I was just wondering. You seem like you weren't stoked about it. And she's like, well, I just don't believe a woman should be president. I was like, fuck. Damn it. What? And I like my girl's there and she's super liberal and Jewish, and I'm just like, and I don't know why I said Jewish like it matters because there are definitely some conservative
in today's political climate, it definitely matters.
Dude, you know what's crazy? We've gone to we have just in public so much more often now. We'll run into conservative Trumper Christians who will see if she's wearing the Star of David or something, they'll be like, oh, you Jewish? She's like, yeah, I am. She's like, they're like, oh, we support you. And she's like, that's okay. Because she's very obviously she is proud of her Jewish heritage, but also she is super, she's pro, people having basic rights in humanity, right? So she's very much hey, let Palestine go, all this stuff. And so, but it's just so funny now how she's finally getting the respect from the right that the Jews have always deserved, but it's totally not for the reason that you would want,
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out what the bit there is, thinking about my parents being like, oh, good job, you nabbed a J. We got to do everything we can for them now. I'm like, what?
We got to pay reparations now. We got German heritage. Just
it's wait a minute. You guys went from being like, no, we hate to now they're in it. Yeah, fuck yeah, let's go.
Yeah, Jews were the one white people that other white people hated.
Yeah,
and now it's just I think they're even we gotta unify. Now. I don't know.
I never quite knew how my dad would resolve that because we loved Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Big Seinfeld fans in my household. But I think he just liked watching Kramer be Kramer. I think that was it.
Yeah. It's always, it wasn't that the whole thing with, I'm not big on sitcoms, but isn't that the whole thing with, it's not Modern Family. Family Matters.
Yeah.
Like the first like 2 seasons were nothing about Steve Urkel, and then like the rest of the show was just the Steve Urkel show.
Yes.
I feel like that's how Seinfeld, anytime I hear someone speak, I've never seen an episode of Seinfeld.
Really?
Never.
Wow.
But anytime I hear people talk about Seinfeld, they're immediately like, man, that Kramer's great, huh? And I'm like, I guess.
It's actually really weird how that works out, because like Seinfeld is like kind of I think in like, in historical perspective, right? Because I mean the show, it had the impact that it had in the 90s, and we've moved on from then culturally, right? But actually, like for its time, like pretty smart show for like a mainstream
it's still
sitcom.
Like I said, I've never watched it, but you still hear people talk about watching Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Like there are very few shows that are like, I mean, there are some shows that bridged from the 90s to 2000s that hold up, but I feel like a show that is kind of like locked in 90s nostalgia, kind of as it is.
Yeah.
Don't hold up as well, but it's one of the ones that everybody's like, no, Seinfeld's still a great show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I agree. I mean, it's one of my favorite shows of all time. I mean, talk about like comedic influence. Like so much of my comedic influence came from Seinfeld, for sure, 100%. Just because it's all about just like it's all just like social commentary, and not social commentary in like any sort of grand political sense. Just social commentary as far as like stupid things like, oh, this person, every time I see her, she wears the same dress. What's up with that?
Yeah,
and having those little bitty, because like we have those little conversations.
Yeah, they're not
all the time.
They're social commentary about just like the typical 4-person American household.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what? So all right. So what other comedians are you like? Like, do you look like, are there comedians that you look at? You're like, I'm trying to be like with them, like trying to do what they do.
So I went to see Gabriel Iglesias in Lexington at Rupp Arena.
Okay.
And it was before I got into stand up, and I watched that, and I was like, I can never do this.
Really? Okay.
And then
he's a killer.
He's such a killer, and he's such an act. Like his stuff is so methodical and so like it's so punched up. But I think I was seeing him in an arena, so I was seeing a punched up version.
Sure.
And then I went and saw Bert Kreischer after I'd started comedy.
Okay.
And it was, again, like he was doing the Machine Story, and it was the loudest pop I'd ever heard from a crowd. And
really,
his stuff was kind of, he wasn't even doing punched up stuff. He was just going back and doing old stuff.
Okay.
And it was just, he was murdering.
Going back to the classics, yeah.
And this was also at Rupp Arena. And then I saw Tom Segura.
Okay.
At Comedy Off Broadway.
Love Tom Segura.
One of my favorites. I saw him at Comedy Off Broadway right after Sledgehammer had come out.
Okay.
So
shit.
he was working on stuff.
Yeah.
To the point Comedy Off Broadway sent an email out if you bought a ticket.
Yeah.
And it was like, hey, Tom is working on stuff. He is not, I forget exactly what the email said, but it was like, he's got like 40 minutes of material, be respectful. You know, we want people like him to come back. Yeah. And it was kind of this interesting turn of like how the sausage gets made.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, this is how, they're just not constantly putting out these like hour-long specials that are just constantly good. Like, no, he also works on stuff. Doing that kind of opened my eyes. So then like going back and seeing him, and then like I love Shane Gillis. I love Mark Normand.
Same.
And
I'm not a huge Mark Normand guy, but I totally respect him. And but Shane Gillis is fucking. I'm down on Shane Gillis.
I love. And then like they kind of made me fall deeper in love with comedy. Like it was one of those things, like it was like, a girlfriend you have just to like spend time with, and then you fall in love with her. And like they were the ones that made me do that. So you get down to like guys who are more on the local scene, or like their openers. Like I started looking into their like who they brought to open for them. Yeah. Derek Stroop opened for Bert Kreischer, and he's hilarious. A guy named Dale Jones is in Louisville pretty often. Really? Like smaller names that I've really come to love, and just like, and they're the guys that you go to their show, and then you walk outside and they're standing there and they're talking to people
because they want to build a fan base.
Yeah, you're never. It's to the point now you're never gonna like go to a club and stand outside and smoke a cigarette with Bert Kreischer. I don't smoke, so I would never do that. But they're bigger than that now. But like these littler guys who who put out to me just as funny material. They just they don't have an audience.
Right.
So there's just those are kind of the guys I've started to love a lot. Are those kind of smaller name guys.
Yeah. I totally get that. And I think it's all, it's all contextual too, because I mean, once you get to a certain level as a comedian, like you become so like legendary that like I feel like it almost becomes harder to have authentic experiences because people know you, and they're just like people who like there are some people who just don't really even know what funny is, or just like, oh well, this is the funny guy, right? Like he's just like, oh my god, that's the goat, like whatever he says must be hilarious, right?
Yeah, and that I've heard a few people talk about. I think Dave Chappelle is kind of like the biggest voice on that.
Okay,
and like I listened. I forget. It was kind of third party how I heard it. It was somebody else talking about a conversation they'd had with Dave. Yeah, Dave was talking about Cat Williams.
Okay,
and I think it was maybe on the Rogan's podcast.
Okay,
and he was like, Chappelle was like, you can tell Cat Williams has stopped doing clubs. He's not working on stuff. He's just doing arenas.
Oh, interesting.
He's not having that grind to make something great.
Yeah.
And I feel like after that, I heard that, I was like, oh, I have to buckle down and start doing clubs and just doing these little bar shows. And,
yeah.
Yeah,
I totally get that. And I think that's another, that is like, to your point, like that's the nice thing about stand-up is like, it's a, it's like, you see it's a craft, right?
Yeah.
You see it's a thing that you can do, and you can be shitty at it, but at least you can see that you're getting better at it.
That is the one thing I really appreciate about stand-up is stand-up I feel like is the one art form that you can see a work in progress.
Yeah.
You're never going to hear somebody's halfway made song.
Yeah.
You're never going to see a movie halfway done.
Right.
Stand-up, you go to an open mic, in New York, you're not going to, you're probably not going to see it here in Louisville. I don't know. Louisville's got some pretty big names that live here now.
Really?
Yeah, like Heather Shaw lives here now. She looks like Jim Carrey. She's on TikTok mainly.
Yeah, she lives here?
She lives here.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I've spoken to her a couple times.
Shit.
One of the people from Wild and Out, Jacob Williamson.
Okay.
I think he lives here.
Okay.
So there are some big names. And
they're not comedians, but I think one of the biggest TikTokers channels that's here is the McFarlane family. I've seen those guys.
That rings a bell.
It's just a very clearly like what we call comfortable white family. You know what I'm saying? Just living in, I think they live off of like in like the Gardner neighborhood somewhere, but I don't know. But they're like, I mean, they have like millions of followers on TikTok.
Yeah, but and I think that's with that one might be another one. Content creation on a small form might be another one where you can kind of see the sausage get made.
Yeah,
you can scroll back in somebody's video and see, or in their videos, and see like kind of where they started. That might be the only other ones. Yeah, that might be the only other art form where you see like you see somebody progress.
Yeah, 100%. And that's empowering.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah,
and I love going back, and I just very, very often I will go back and watch like a 2008 Joe Rogan special.
Okay.
Or I'll go back and I'll watch Shane Gillis's first special on YouTube at Creek in a Cave.
Dude.
And it's one of my favorites.
Wait, Creek in a Cave. Wait, I'm thinking of the one where he talks about having a Fox News dad.
Is that
the one?
The club he shot that at is Creek in a Cave.
Oh, okay. That's the name of the club.
In Austin.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I'll go back and I'll watch that, and then you go and you see him, and that was at a small little venue in front of how many people, 100, 200 people, maybe more. And then you see him, he'll post a clip, and he was, he's in Toronto in an arena, and just seeing what he's doing now, and then you go back and he's in this intimate room, and it's really inspiring to be able to see that creation. You're never going to see that out of another art form.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah,
I saw Shane Gillis, I want to say probably like 2 years ago now. He was at the Brown Theater.
I went and saw him at the Brown Theater.
Did you really?
Yeah, I think it was this year though. I think I went in February of this year.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It must have been a year before that, but okay. Can I just start throwing some names out? Be like,
absolutely.
Do you like these people?
Sure.
Tim Dillon, what do you think?
Tim Dillon, there are some people that I will separate.
Okay.
In my head, and it is comedy and commentary.
Okay. Yeah.
Typically, I like them in one or the other. There are some people in crossover. Segura, I love in both.
Yeah.
Kreischer, I love in both.
Yeah.
Tim Dillon is a person whose comedy I'm not huge on.
Yeah.
But his commentary, I love to turn him on and just have him in the background and listen to him go.
Yeah, he's a psycho.
Yeah, I love it. I love him for that.
Yeah, I agree. I actually saw him in Cleveland a couple years ago, and I was like, this is fine. I think he's had maybe one Netflix special.
Yeah,
and they're fine.
Yeah,
they're just they're okay.
My favorite Tim Dillon ever was he did something with Whitney Cummings. Okay. It was Bert Kreischer's cooking show.
Oh yeah.
And he made
Something's burning.
Yeah. And he made a joke to Whitney Cummings, something about Bert asked what kind of dessert he would make for her. Yeah. And he was like, Percocet pudding. And he just went off about it. And I was like, I love that.
Because he's just roasting the fuck out of her.
Exactly.
And that's someone else. I'm not trying to talk shit, but also I'll talk a little shit. I don't think she's that funny.
Whitney?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever really listened to Whitney, but I think I've tried.
Yeah.
And I've never clicked with her comedy either. I don't think.
Okay. Yeah. Same.
It's I respect her. I respect what she does. She's she's made a name for herself, and she's she's done it as a woman in this industry.
100%.
So I fully respect her, but I'm just, again, comedy is subjective, and it doesn't click with me.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Have you ever seen Jordan Jensen?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. She's someone who I saw here. She was at Planet of the Tapes, and she is now ever since Planet of the Tapes, she's gotten bigger and bigger, and I think she's actually been opening for Tom Segura.
Really?
For a couple of shows recently.
Really? Okay.
And she's one of my favorites because she goes up there, she's just crazy, and she's just so authentic. And it almost sounds like it's just this. She just seems like she's not okay, and she's just rambling about her life, and it just is funny. I don't even feel like she's doing bits up there.
Yeah,
she's just being crazy.
There are some people who just talk.
Yeah,
and they're golden.
Yeah,
I big name wise, I'm sure I'll think of one on the way home tonight. I'll be like, I should have mentioned that person, but I can't think of. But there are some that I'm just they're just talking about things that happened that day.
Yeah,
and I'm like, how do you have 15 minutes about something that come out on the news 4 hours ago?
Yeah, 100%.
And I respect that. I can't do that, so it makes me respect it more.
Yeah, I think that's, and I'm not going to just sit here and be like, well, my problem with comedy is, but I think that's something I fall into a lot as someone who's just starting is, I feel like there's 4 or 5 dudes that I'm just trying to emulate, and I think that I kind of feel like I'm trying to jump to the end of the line where I'm just perform and just be as natural as possible, and just try to make it sound like it's a conversation, and it'll be funny. But then I'll go up there and I'll do it, and I was like, oh, I don't know how to write a joke.
Yeah. I fully understand what you're saying. Yeah. It is this with stand-up. It is the first time in my life that I have ever struggled or even dealt with imposter syndrome. Yeah. Because you talked about it earlier, the competitions, and we brought it up, the funniest person in Louisville, and I did the Crosstown Comedy Festival.
Yeah. Which you got I was in the semifinal for Louisville, right?
Louisville, and then I was in the finals for the Crosstown Comedy Festival.
Hell yeah.
And I was like, I don't think I'm this funny. I don't think I should. I remember
How am I making it this far?
Yeah, I sat in the green room of the Crosstown I was on a couch with Jake Hovis and Nathan Alexander, who we mentioned earlier. Yeah. And I was like, man, I should not be here. And I was looking, and Mike Fields was there, and Lena Beamish was there, and some Cincinnati comics Phil Pointer was there, and I was like, I should not. And the headliner was Daniel Van Kirk. Okay. Who he's a voice on Bob's Burgers, and he's a national touring headliner. And
wait, is that the guy with the deep hey, this guy?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
The guy who voices Bob.
No, it is not the guy that voices Bob. He voices. I looked him up once, and he looked like a white. Like I hadn't seen him.
Okay.
And I was like, he looked like a white rapper on the show, but I don't. That might be dead wrong.
Interesting. Okay.
But I was like, and it was fully me sitting there, be like, I should not be here. Yeah. I don't think I should be here.
Yeah.
And then,
but clearly that was incorrect.
Yeah.
I mean, if you made it that far.
Yeah. I don't know. It was the one time I had to think back to that kid at that open mic who walked off stage and then 2 months later came back and got a good laugh. And I was like, maybe I'm just feeling what he felt at that moment. I was like, I might screw up tonight, but I can come back in a couple months and I'll be decent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you feel, now let me ask you this. I mean, the fact that you did those competitions and you made it that far, how do you feel after that? Like, do you feel like, oh, I can do this?
Yeah, so I do. But the reason I do is because I got bookings out of them.
Oh, is that right?
I got booking. I got two.
I see. Interesting.
And I actually didn't get any bookings out of the one in Cincinnati where I made it to the finals, but the one in Louisville, I got 2.
Oh, okay.
I got 2 bookings.
Hell yeah.
So after that, I was like, oh, no, people want to see me.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, maybe, this guy thinks I'm funny. The first one I got booked for a hosting gig in Jeffersonville, Indiana.
Okay.
At a little bar. And the guy, his name was Marty Quinn. He was the first guy that ever booked me. And he was like, no, I want you to host for me. And I was like, cool.
Shit.
And he's all over the United States.
Yeah.
And then I got booked for the show I'm doing tonight, the Lexington versus Louisville show at the semifinals. And it was it was weird. The show ended and I did not move on. Well, like Craig Ewing, who kind of runs Louisville comedy.
Oh, yeah.
Walked over and shook my hand and he was like, you had a very good set. And I was like, this is weird. I was like, you don't usually tell me I do good.
Yeah.
I was like, he'll be like, oh, a good set, or that was a good bit.
He'll be a little standoffish until you really are.
Yeah, but then he walked over and like stuck his hand out. And I was like, oh, thanks, Craig. And it was like big for me. And then like on the way home, I got the message. He was like, would you be interested in doing the show? And I was like, oh, yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So that was... The imposter syndrome has settled down because of that.
Right. Okay.
I'm actually getting, and then I've since then I've gotten 2 others back in Lexington, and they're little bar shows. People will be like, "Hey, you do this, you come, see that." And that was a little less because they haven't seen me perform like my kind of like set time.
Right.
They're just kind of going off. Hey, you've worked for this, you've earned this.
Yeah.
But for those,
paid your dues.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The 2 that I got here in Louisville were like, no, you're funny. I want you.
Yeah.
So those super helped me out mentally.
That's fucking sick.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: when you do those book shows, like, well, here's an interesting question. And again, half of the reason I'm even doing this podcast is just so I can just pick comedians' brains. And
absolutely.
Be like, how the fuck do you do this?
Yeah.
So how do you how do you know? Like, okay, so like, say because you just recently made the transition from like open mic to book shows, right?
Yeah.
So how do you know when a joke is ready to be on a book show? Like, how do you know where like it's like, yeah, I've got, I have various jokes that could technically make 10 to 15 minutes worth of material, but like, is that joke ready?
Yeah.
How do you know?
For me, it was a little easier because the bits I did moved me on in those competitions.
Okay.
So that to me, I was like, okay, no, they thought that was funny.
Yeah.
Move on.
I see what you mean.
Prior to that, I would kind of, I don't know if I would even do it consciously, but subconsciously would kind of set an expectation for a joke.
Okay.
And if it exceeded that,
okay,
was whenever I was like I would do a little like kind of tagline, and that tag would get a bigger laugh than the punchline. So then you kind of have to rewrite the joke a little bit.
Yeah.
But that was kind of what it was whenever it exceeded my own expectations.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're like, I'm pretty sure the joke's going to do this.
Yeah.
And then it does, whoa, okay,
Yeah.
actually, it's better than what I thought it was going to be.
There were times where like I was like, okay, I want to do this. Because one thing I'm terrible at is crowd work.
Yeah.
And I'm terrible at crowd work. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then and I'll look at the crowd the night of, and I'll be like, okay, I can say this to that person.
Okay.
And like, I'll do the bit, and it's happened 2 or 3 times. I'll do the bit, and it will get such a laugh that I'm like, I'm not going into that. I can't flounder on that. I can't go into this that I'm not ready for.
Yeah.
And waste what I just had. So I'm just going to go to another bit.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're riding the energy.
Exactly. That's for me. And a lot of stand-up comics say this. Your first 5 minutes, your best joke is what you close with. Your second best joke is what you open with. to me. Okay. So to me, and I've said this to a lot of people.
You just brought up another thing, another topic that I would like to. But I'm going to wait for you to finish.
But this is how I explain it to people who don't do comedy, like the people I work with. Mm-hmm. They'll be like, "How do you do that?" And like, how do you? They're kind of asking similar questions to you.
Yeah.
But you have a comedian mind. You'll understand kind of the nuances of the things I'm saying.
Right. They're just like, "How do you come up with this stuff?"
Exactly. Yeah. And so for them, I'll be like, "Well, the weird thing is a laugh will roll. It's like you kind of, it's like a ball. You get it rolling, and then it's easier to make it go faster."
Yeah.
So like
once you get them on your side.
Yeah. Exactly. Once they're like, "You're funny." So one kind of unwritten rule I've done for myself is my first minute is an opener.
Yeah.
And that first minute is kind of an isolated 60-second joke.
Okay.
And that gets that ball rolling.
Okay.
And then you're kind of just using its momentum to guide you along.
So it sounds to me like you go up there and you're like, you kind of try to start with something that you know is going to get some sort of
something. I'm
reaction.
trying to hit them hard in 60 seconds.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Man, that's such a good idea. I do the exact opposite where I'll go up, I'll think to myself, what's a funny little thing that I can say off the cuff? So like I almost sabotage myself every time I go up because I think like, oh, I should say a little funny thing to start the conversation of my set, right?
Yeah.
And so I end up like doing my girlfriend roasts me all the time for this. If the person who went up before me, and I do it all the time, and it never works. If someone before me goes up or comes back and they had like something weird on, like the first time I ever did stand up, the guy before me had like this like really just like ornate wooden beads that he was wearing. It looked ridiculous.
Okay.
And I went up and I was like, oh man, good thing I didn't wear my wooden beads. That would have been really embarrassing. You know?
Yeah.
And it never works. People are just like, what is this guy talking about?
Yeah. That is something. If I'm working on new stuff and I don't have an opener.
Yeah.
And I got this was advice from Mike Fields, another local comedian.
Okay.
He's from Lexington. Okay. But he was like, listen, one thing you need to do is tie into the last guy. He said, if you're recording, he said, set it up 2 people before you. He said, set up your phone, be ready to go.
Oh, I see.
And then when the person before you goes up, you watch them like a hawk.
Yeah.
And your opening joke should somehow tie into something they've said.
Okay.
If it's a joke about them, if it's relating to something they said.
Yeah.
If it's, you carrying on a joke they made, he said it should tie into that. So that is something, if I'm working on stuff and don't have an opener, I do that.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So it's actually not a bad idea. It's just
no. That's exactly how I do it.
But it can be a risk though, because if 100%. It doesn't work out, now you're working uphill.
Yes.
Instead of just starting with strong shit.
But I think, and another thing is, I think that makes you a better comic.
Okay.
I think the best place to be as a comic to grow, and I mean, this isn't, I don't think you should your first time up should not be this place. Your first 5 times up should not be.
I'm just trying to get booked.
Yeah, your first 5 times should not be what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But should be right after somebody bombs.
Yeah.
You should, as somebody bombs, you should go up. And there was the best I ever saw was another local guy from Lexington named Todd Probus.
Yeah.
There was this guy got up on stage and did, it was 3 or 5 minutes, can't remember, about doing art with his shit.
Okay.
Like taking it and making art. And Todd Probus just got on stage and shook his head and was like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. That guy stole all my jokes. and immediately got the crowd back, and they were rolling. So ever since I saw that, I was like, okay, that's what I have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're reading the room. It's
exactly.
Because people and that's one of the things that makes comedy hard is you're so afraid of not being funny, right?
Yeah.
And it's easy to forget that the performance is a conversation with the audience. I try to think about the audience like it's just one big blob of a person.
Yeah.
It's just a generic personality that's just everybody in the room together. And it's the only way to really make that, like, you can't, and so because of that, like, if you can read the room and see that, like, they're obviously, like, feeling a certain kind of way because of what happened previously, it's like you got to talk about it.
Yeah.
You got to give them permission to feel the way that they feel before they can move on to what you're wanting to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is, like, and it's one of those things like we talk about, I talked about a laugh will roll. You got to keep it rolling.
Yeah.
Like the hardest thing as a new comic, but also it can be the easiest thing if you're good at it.
Yeah.
And I'm not good at it, so I'm not, jerking myself off here.
Same.
But like whenever you're going to an open mic and they haven't laughed in 15 minutes, like the last 3 people have bombed.
Yeah.
And you're going up there and you're like, man, I got to get these people back.
Yeah.
And that's whenever you're just kind of gritting your teeth, and if you're working on new stuff, you're really fighting them.
Oh, right, because you don't want to put yourself in a position where, like, you're just getting set up for failure.
Yeah, because a lot, after 15 minutes, even me as a comedian would be like, well, maybe this club isn't that good, or maybe some comedy, maybe something else is happening in town, and that's where everybody's at. And, I'm glad that you said that, because you just circled me back to the thing that I was going to bring up, which is when you're testing out material. And actually, you know what? I think I already know the answer to this, which is do more fucking sets. But I think so. But my question was going to be, how do you know when I try to not ever put stock in the idea that, like, it wasn't you, it was them. Yeah.
I try to never buy into that. But in all candor, some rooms are better than others. Mm-hmm. Some rooms there are fewer people. Some rooms, like, there's just different personalities of people who were like this last week. I was at the Louisville Comedy Club, and it was like, it was not great.
You told me about that. You should at least preface to the people who are listening what happened at the Louisville Comedy Club last week.
Dude, there was this couple, right? There was a guy and a girl, and the guy was, like, very clearly just out of his mind drunk, and it's like, it's 7:20 and he's already hammered, and Ben Stewart was the host, doing a fucking killer job.
Solid comedian.
So fantastic. And the guy's heckling him, and he's doing okay. And then the next open micer goes up, or I'm sorry, the first open micer of the night goes up, and it's Ben Potts. I don't know if you've heard it. And he, he's zeroed in on the guy, because the guy won't shut the fuck up.
Really?
Like, this guy is like, he's shouting out a response to every single joke that Ben Potts is making.
Really?
100%. So, like, he'll say something like, yeah, I like that, or like, I agree, and the guy, and so eventually he's just like, hey, I hate you, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And he's like, ain't no problem with me.
Ain't no problem with me. I'm just stealing your stage time.
Yeah. And it's like an event, and it was a good experience for me to witness, because I got to see how long the club would let that shit go before. And and luckily by the time the guy after Ben Potts went up, security was like, you got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Right. And so the guy gets up, and of course, and this is what's hard too, is like, the next open micer, he's got to do his set, but, like, to what we were saying earlier, like,
it's hard to win a room back after that.
It's hard to win a room back, and while it's happening, like, nobody gives a fuck about what you're saying.
No, not at all.
They're all just watching that guy being thrown out.
Yeah.
And he's like, ugh, he's like clearly having trouble just standing, much less walking out of the room. And then after they finally get him out. By the way, apparently, shout out to Jake Hovis, because that guy is fucking
a mountain.
He's a mountain, right? And so sounds like he was integral in getting that guy thrown out.
Really?
So the guy, after they threw him out of the room, like, again, the open micer's trying to, like, keep doing his set, and everyone else can just hear the other in the bar area, just, people screaming and shouting, like, get out, get the fuck out. And then, like, the girl's like, stop it, stop doing that. Like, she's embarrassed. She was wearing sunglasses because she didn't want to get, like, noticed with this fucking just very not okay guy who was taking it out on everybody. And just the idea of like having to follow that and let the crowd learning and knowing how to let a crowd process that. But okay, I got away from my point. The point is, how do you know when it's the joke or the crowd? Because I did that's what I was gonna say. So I did a joke about the Ninja Turtles, which I thought was a pretty solid joke, but. Louisville Comedy Club crowd, it's just basic working class. Like, it's just, it's not even just working class. It's just like, these are just regular people who are just looking to have some drinks and like
listen to a comedy show.
Yeah, these guys are like people who work in like physical therapy offices. Like, they don't give a fuck about the Ninja Turtles. No. So it's like, how do you know when it's like, oh, this joke just wasn't for that crowd?
Yeah, that's something I'm definitely still learning myself.
Okay.
I'll give you an example, but the one thing that kind of keeps me going is it was another comedian we haven't mentioned who's a great stand-up is Ari Shaffir.
Oh yeah,
and
I've seen Ari. He's
you've seen him live?
Yeah. I just saw him do his like all of his Jew jokes.
Yeah.
An hour of Jewish stuff.
Ari said one time on a podcast, and I can't remember what it was. That good clubs keep you going. Good clubs make you want to come back. They make you want to keep doing comedy.
Yeah.
Bad rooms make you better.
Yeah.
So if you do a bad room, and even if you have a mediocre set, in a good room, it's a great set. So
I see.
Yeah. So a lot of it is, it's not necessarily the crowd, but it's just even doing it, a killer joke, getting a is killer for that room. So just tampering your expectations to the room you're in. I've had good sets and bad sets at every club in Louisville. Planet of the Tapes, I've had my best set. The video that I send to clubs that I try to get booked at comes from Planet of the Tapes. Okay. Also, the worst room I've ever been in was Planet of the Tapes.
Really? Okay.
There were these two men, I assume they were a couple, were in front of it. And like every joke I would make, political or not, or I made a joke, a video game joke, and they just, and I was like, and they sat front and center, So like everybody was kind of like, what are these? Like they were again more focused on those people.
Sure, yeah. It's like what's their problem?
Yeah. But I've had a similar joke with Forrest Gump.
Okay.
That I've been trying to make for. Probably at this point 7 or 8 months.
Okay.
And I've tried it in Lexington, I've tried it in Louisville, I've tried it in Cincinnati. It just doesn't land anywhere. And I love it. And it's a joke about Forrest Gump being on the Epstein flight logs. And I think it might just be too heady.
Yeah.
And I just have spent so much time with it. I think it's so funny.
Yeah.
And it's just not.
But you still do it for you.
Oh yeah, I have recently rewritten it.
Okay,
and that's one thing with jokes. Maybe your Ninja Turtle joke. Like I always keep it, and then like I had this joke about Epstein's Island and Forrest Gump being there, and him being like him showing up with a pickaxe and a coal miner's helmet because he's there for the miners. He's stuff like that, and then you're like,
he's an idiot.
Exactly, and then like the big ending is like. There was all this stuff with Stephen Hawking on the island and him,
Yeah.
Well, the ending of it is like, Dr. Hawking, you ain't got no legs. That's and it's a big tie back to the movie. And people are just like, what? Like, and I love that joke that I've made, but I've recently done a joke about movie sequels. Okay. And it has found its way in some sense into that joke.
Okay.
So it still lives on, but then like it's not Epstein's Island, it's just a Forrest Gump sequel.
Yeah.
Now. So it's different.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So you've taken the Epstein aspect out of the joke entirely. Okay.
Yeah. I tried to keep it in there and it was kind of the Epstein Island was still the punchline. It did not land.
Yeah.
But the opening 2 bits that I have to it murdered, and I was like, all right, the Epstein Island, just for whatever reason, does not work.
People aren't ready.
I guess. I don't know.
Laugh about it.
The second part of that joke is about him storming the Capitol on January 6th, and it murders.
That's a hilarious idea.
Yeah,
because that is like Forrest. Like that's his whole thing. Is he just is him, and he just ends up in these crazy historical moments.
Exactly. So that I guess I'm going to give away the entire joke, but I don't care to. in this, Forrest Gump was a part of every major event from 1959 to 1999.
Yeah.
So theoretically, Forrest Gump 2 has to start on 9/11. And then you just go and like I've got to find something in between, and just at the end you're like, I kept running to the White House on January 6th, and just like because everybody remembers him running, and I think it's a lot of
I don't know what those people are so mad about.
Yeah, I just wanted to see the cherry blossoms bloom. And I think it's a lot of like what people remember about things. So a lot of people remember the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
So, but like, I couldn't tell you like one thing that happens in Ninja Turtle lore.
I couldn't. I mean, very little. I think. I mean, I've only seen the movies, and I haven't really seen the show that much. But we were watching the second one, and to be fair, this is my girl who gave me the idea for the joke, and we were just watching them, and she was just like, "Why are they wearing masks?"
That's honestly, I never thought about that.
Like you're mutant Ninja Turtles. Like, are you worried about being in public and like someone being like, Jared?
Yeah. Jared, it's Leonardo. Yeah, that's true. I think it has legs under it.
I think it's a great idea.
It's got legs under it for sure. I don't know.
Also, they only have one friend and they wear the masks around her. Yeah,
that's true.
Like everywhere they go, they're wearing them. What's the point?
Yeah. So she's gonna get them mixed up if they're not color coordinated.
Yeah, that's really all it is. Yeah. It's just so they know
which one's which.
Yeah. Which, like, come on, you're brothers. You should know.
Yeah, they're like the twins. Like that were your friends in elementary school who would go to each other's classes just to see if the teachers would recognize.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
100%.
Yeah,
twins were celebrities in high school, man.
They were.
We talked about improv. I wanted to get back to that.
Okay.
I did want to explain the motivation behind that.
That is I'm gonna, as you as the host, I will ask you a question because I ask it's but we'll do your improv thing first. Okay. Let's get to that. But I will forget it, so I'm going to say it now so I won't forget it.
Please.
The one thing I ask every comic is like, how did they get into comedy? That's I've asked everybody that I've ever like sat with. That's my one question I ask them. Okay. But let's do your improv thing first, and then we'll circle back to that.
All right. Cool. So the improv thing, So I've been just let's see, how do I say it? Okay, so improv, right? So I'm not I personally, like, I'm not a theater guy.
Yeah.
Right? Like I was in plays in like middle school and shit, and my choir teacher hated me, and so it's like, all right, well, fuck you. I'm never gonna do theater. And but my girl she's in Extra Crispy. She's in this improv troupe. And so I've been watching them perform for like the last 3.5 years. And I've seen a handful of improv troupes, and a lot of the time it's like, it is the theater crowd where it's like, we're not funny, but, and we think we're more interesting than we are. Yeah. And it always just ends up being like the me hour.
Yeah. It's the same as stand up.
It's but it's not funny a lot.
Yeah,
a lot of time it's just like high school theater kids who like can't let it go.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Like, it's me. Welcome to the me show. I'm a theater person. Blah blah blah.
I've never thought about that. That's something. Theater is so foreign to me. So this is so interesting because I've never met anybody that has had this experience, let alone like this outside perspective also from the inside.
Yes.
And B, just like trying to relate it to my own life. Like, I'm running through things that are like, what is something that's similar? And the only thing I can think of, like, from my hometown, like, we're not a football school. We're not a basketball school. Okay. We're a marching band school.
Okay.
And you have a lot of those kids that were in marching band just like go to be music teachers. Crossover. And then go to so it's like kind of this self-perpetuating like
were you
system.
in marching band?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, okay. I definitely was flirting with a lot of the marching band girls though.
Hell yeah, dude.
So, like,
sluts.
I was kind of this honorary band dad.
Oh, okay.
So like I would go to a lot of the competitions.
Hell yeah.
Just because, like, so and so I was talking to at the time, or so and so I was trying to sleep with at the time.
Yeah, dude.
They would just be like, "Hey, you come out to wherever we're doing this show." And so that's the only thing I can relate that to is like a lot of these people, this was 10 years ago. They were playing the flute. Now they're, 10 years later and they're teaching other people how to play the flute.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can even get close to theater in my head about.
Yeah, I see what you mean. And there's, and a lot of those people were in theater too. Like at least at my school, like you were like a lot of the people that were in band were also in theater. And so yeah, I get that. Okay, so the theater kids, right? So those improv troupe, it's a lot. And I was introduced to that like when I first started seeing shows with Allison because there was this bar called the Bardstown. Yeah. Where that was like kind of like the hub for improv and theater. Okay. Right. So you had a lot more troops that kind of had like a dual background. But the thing with Extra Crispy, her improv troupe is like they're actually funny. Yeah. Like it's much less like of a theater focused group. It's much more just like people who just want to be goofy. Yeah. Or just being goofy. Right? Okay.
Much more lax.
Much more lax. Yeah. And spending, seeing all of those shows and of course my girl and I, she's also a big comedy fan. Okay. And so we watch a lot of stand up together and we both sort of collectively stumbled on this guy, this comedian named Rory Scovel.
I think I've heard that name before.
Rory Scovel is like he's kind of in that like alt crowd like Pete Holmes and like John Mulaney, those kind of guys. Yeah. And I can't believe I just called John Mulaney an alt comic.
He is kind of like him and Bo Burnham are like the two front faces of like alt comedy. Yeah, technically, like they're very much mainstream, but they are alt comics.
100%. Yeah. And so Rory Scovel has a stand-up special on YouTube called Allison and I, we argue over how this is pronounced, but it's supposed to be like this. It's double entendre. The special is called Live in Fear or Live in Fear. Okay. Depending on how you want to pronounce it. And it is a 100% improvised stand-up special.
Jesus.
So it's kind of like it's shot, it's like like Zach Galifianakis, he has like has that special Live with the Purple Onion. It's like kind of like a documentary. Yeah. Where he'll catalog his road adventures while doing shows, and so it's kind of like that. And they also kind of catalog this theater in Atlanta that he did the week of shows in. And basically it's like an hour, but they'll do like clips from each night. He did a week of these completely improvised shows. And it was one of the funniest specials I've ever seen.
Really?
In my life.
I might have to look this up. This is interesting. Was it him doing like, again, this is me just being ignorant to like what improv is. Yeah. Was it like him just like doing bits, or was he just like talking and just rolling with it? Like feeding off the crowd and like crowd work and running into things. And
I will say there was some crowd work. Okay. For sure. I would say it was more of the latter where he's just going up and he is like, I have no idea what I'm going to talk about. Okay. And I think, he talks about like, like a lot of it comes from like, if he's like reading an article earlier in the day about like one of the nights he does material about self-driving cars because he'd read an article about self-driving cars earlier that day, right? And he had no idea that he was going to say anything about that or that he had so much to say about it until he was right there in front of the crowd and just starts riffing on this topic, right? So it's really like he is just up there riffing on whatever comes to his mind, and then bits come out of that. Yeah. And so it's almost like seeing someone just like try to like spontaneously come up with bits like on the spot. Yeah.
That sounds so interesting to me, honestly. That really because I cannot. I'm not a riff comic. Yeah. I am not an improv comic.
Same.
In any form. I have to have rule of 3. I have to have my main joke, and then I have to have 3 tags before I'll take it on stage.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Main joke, 3 tags.
Yeah. So like I'll have like a punchline or a topic that I think is funny, and then I have to have 3 taglines at least.
Okay.
And then like from that I can create a setup and I can create segues and transitions between them. Okay. But I cannot get up and just be like Lyndon B. Johnson and just run with it.
That bitch.
Yeah. Talk about his balls, but no, that's
and I'm right there with you. Like I'm gonna do it as I try to perform it. Like I try to come up with it. I try to think about it in as conversational manner as possible.
Yeah,
but I'm doing it as I practiced it.
Yeah,
100%.
Absolutely.
And so in seeing that, it was like it was revolutionary for me. One, just as someone starting out, like it was so wild to me that I was like, I feel like you found a new form of electricity and no one's using it.
Yeah.
Like why aren't there more comedians out there just improvising material? And it's probably because one, most like there's a hard line a lot of the unless we're talking like the Second City, like SNL type, like Chris Farley type guys.
Yeah.
But again, those guys aren't really stand-ups. No. Those guys are like they're just like comedic performers.
Yeah.
And so you've got like that lane of comedy. And then you have people who are just straight like I'm writing jokes, I'm telling the jokes. And there is like Rory Scovel, like there is like a little bit of crossover. Some guys are kind of in both worlds a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've heard this phrase that I've heard people often make this comment that like good improvisers can make good stand-ups, but good stand-ups can't make good improvisers.
I'd agree with that.
And so the rationale I had for myself is like, well, I'm just starting. I don't have any of the bad habits of a stand-up yet that would make it hard for me to improvise. I should just learn how to do it now.
Yeah.
Since I'm connected to these people, like why not utilize that and just learn how to do improv?
Yeah.
Before I really start going hard on sets.
Yeah.
Hard on sets. And then in addition to that, I was watching like a random YouTube video where there's this comedian named Pete Lee. Mm-hmm. He was being interviewed talking about when he opened for Louis.
Yeah.
And he was telling the story about how he thought he had figured out like what Louis' whole shtick was. And what Louis said was basically what I'm doing, my whole performance is just what he called a one-man herald. Mm-hmm. Which the herald, and I'm still learning. I've just learned about this concept like 2 weeks ago, so I'm still learning about what this is. But the herald is like a classic structure for an improv show.
Okay,
and it's something that he learned from the Upright Citizens Brigade in New York, which is like a super famous improv school.
Yeah,
right. So I'm thinking like. Okay, well, I'm pretty much just trying. I mean, I hate to say it, but I'm trying to be Louis C.K.
Yeah,
but without the masturbating
in front of people.
In front of people, without asking. I mean, I'll masturbate right now if it.
I mean, I've done it 3 or 4 times during the podcast. There's nobody's seen.
I was wondering, that wasn't your phone you were checking, was it? Yeah. So I'm just like, all right, well, sounds to me like improv has way more in common with stand-up than a lot of comedians really think. And so I'm just like, fuck it, I'll learn how to do this shit at least get like a base. Like I'm not trying to be like a professional improviser, but let me just have some of the skills in the toolkit. And then after that, like let's start going hard on mics.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that. That's it. I mean, everything you said makes sense. It's one of the I might say this backwards. Let me make sure. Good improvs can make good comics, but good comics can't make good improvs.
Yeah.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Yeah. I think if you write for stand-up, I don't know. That would be. I agree with that statement wholeheartedly.
Because if you spent like 15 years, just writing everything you do before you go up, and then you entertain the idea of like, oh, what if I just make it up in front of people? That's fucking terrifying. Yeah,
I've done it for a year and a half, and if I went up on stage and I was like, I got nothing, guys. Like I would have a heart attack on stage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that would be the routine. Is exactly. I just die.
We had that guy die in like the '60s on stage, and he was a magician or a comedian or something.
Is that right?
Have you heard about this guy?
I don't think so.
He is. So there are two. I got a degree in political science. I also have a degree in broadcasting.
Okay.
So
fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah, I don't use either of them. I run a grocery store.
But you work the fuck out of that intercom, though.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. There were like two instances like. Live TV has a delay, and there are two instances, and one of them was a politician killing himself on live TV.
Oh, shit.
And the other one was this. He was either a magician or a comic, and I can't remember which one. Mm-hmm. And throughout his bit, and I think he even like timed up perfectly with something, like he fell back and hit the ground.
Oh, shit.
And the crowd went crazy laughing and like clapping.
Oh, my God.
And he had died of a heart attack. So literally like halfway through the set, like there was a curtain behind him. Literally you just see this hand reach out and grab him and pull him behind the curtain and them come out and be like, hey, he just died.
Holy shit.
Yeah, if I'm remembering that story right. Yeah.
They shouldn't have said anything. They should have just I mean, if they're still clapping when you pull them off, like maybe
I don't think they told them right then. I think they pulled him off and they're like, the show's over. Yeah. I think they're like, then there's no more show.
Thanks for coming out, guys.
Yeah, bye. That was the end.
Hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Because he died giving it to you.
It was a killer show.
That's fucking wild.
Yeah.
Man. I have to look that up. I got to see.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Footage of it?
Oh, yeah, I've seen the footage.
Really?
Yeah, because it was one of those things that they, in broadcasting, you know, I think it was like, I forget what the class was. Yeah. But there was one professor who I to this day will think of, and he was he had lived life to the fullest. Yeah. And he had been an EMT in New York in the 80s, and he had ran a radio station, and now he was a professor. And he was just the guy that if you could get him off on a topic, he was very improv. Okay. Like he was very improv. If he would make me improv and he was the performance professor. Is what was his main title. And we would just get off on these tangents. He was like, "Oh, let me show you this video." Yeah. He's like, "This is why this happens." It's like, "This is why this law exists." Okay. And like both of those were like, "Yeah, the 7-second delay on any live footage is from these events." And he just showed us to it. So it was one there. It was the first one was he's like, this is the main one, and it was this politician who I think got caught sleeping with an underage girl.
Oh shit! Dude.
And he was giving this long speech about how he didn't do it. Oh, and he was like, I am innocent. I did not do this. And at the end of it, these people, he instructed his people, hey, bring me this package. It's got this, and I think it may even be marked evidence, maybe. Yeah. And just like. He's like, this, you know, will be the end of it or something. And he just pulls a revolver out and kills himself. Oh, my God. Right there. And like, time to find out it was all true.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting to me. Like, if you were going to kill yourself, why try to maintain the...
I don't know. I do not know.
Pretense that you're innocent.
Yeah. I don't know. I might be misremembering it wrong. I just remember like they brought him a package on stage and killed himself. Yeah. But he had given kind of this long speech beforehand. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure it was him being like, I did not do this.
Holy fuck.
Yeah.
Man. You didn't watch that one, did you?
I got to the point where he put the gun in his mouth and then the video cut off.
Oh shit.
Like it didn't show that, but it was super interesting.
That's fucking crazy, dude. Yeah. That's good TV.
Yeah, it is really good TV. Yeah, I was like, maybe I need a degree in political science. But that was, you kind of alluded to it. Did you get into improv for stand-up, or did you get into stand-up for improv?
Oh, I definitely got into improv for stand-up, 100%.
Okay.
Because it really is just like, you know, like, again, my girl, and that's another part of it too. Like, you know, that's kind of her thing. I don't really want to like encroach on her world.
That, yeah.
Like, but I do want to use it. I do want to co-opt what I can learn from it, you know? So, yeah, I mean, I grew up, that goes back to your question. I grew up watching stand-up as early as like, 10, 11, 12 years old. When the first, I don't know if the first, probably the second time my mom and dad, they never got divorced, but they separated twice.
Yeah.
And the second time I find myself just by myself at home. I've got cable. Fuck yeah. Let's watch Comedy Central Presents.
So that's actually wild. My parents divorced.
Okay.
And I remember the night it happened.
Yeah.
And dad pulled it. I was like 18 or 19. Okay. I was older.
Oh shit. Okay.
And my youngest brother was too young to really know what was going on. It really hit my middle brother the worst.
Yeah.
But he pulled me into the living room. He's like, "Hey, this is what's going on. I'm leaving. I don't know where I'm going." He said, "But."
Shit.
So it was this very kind of movie-esque, that glamifies it. It was just this kind of you would see it in a movie. This is how it would go.
Yeah.
He just said, "It sounds like this is what's happening. Your mother and I are separating." And I remember it my world kind of ended.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do here. And I just walked into my room and I closed the door and I turned on a Bert Kreischer special.
Really?
And I was like, I forget which one it was. I remember the ending joke was he talked about being at a basketball camp with Ralph Sampson.
Okay.
That's the ending joke. I don't know what special that is.
Yeah.
But, and I just remember watching that and my mom coming in and being like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." It was one of those things I'd seen coming. I was like, he's funny. He make me ha-ha.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was, I think that was where the love for stand-up started.
Okay.
Is it kind of became a healing escape from reality.
It's like a cathartic release.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. And that's largely the same for me. I mean, it was definitely don't get me wrong, I had plenty of coping mechanisms, but it certainly was one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I would go to sleep every night, and I'd had all these stand-up specials pirated, like Jim Gaffigan, Beyond the Pale, Dave Attell, I don't know, I don't remember what special. A lot of them were just Comedy Central Presents specials, the half-hour ones, and I just ripped them off LimeWire.
Yeah.
And I would just play them as I went to sleep every night.
So I would listen to Pandora Radio stand up. As I would fall asleep.
Okay.
And it was largely populated by Chad Daniels. I remember he was the guy that kind of consistently popped up on there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
If either one of us ever talks to Chad Daniels, you have to ask, how were you all over Pandora in 2008?
You had a grip on Pandora from 08 to 12, and you and WWE really my adolescent years were formed by you all.
You influenced me.
Yeah.
As a child.
Yeah.
When I was in, so my dad, I told you my dad was a fucking redneck piece of shit. No, he's great. No, he's good dude.
Cut that out. Let's just make him sound terrible.
He loved to go to tractor pools.
Okay, yeah.
And he built a tractor out of a Husqvarna lawnmower.
Yeah.
He souped that up into a tractor for pulling competitions, and he would make me go with him, even though I fucking hate this shit. And there was one in particular where I guess it was 8th grade. I remember this because I tried to get extra credit for this and it didn't fly. But I was walking through Meijer because my mom worked at Meijer, and I saw this book, and the title of it was Maybe You Never Cry Again, and it was the autobiography of Bernie Mac.
Okay, yeah.
And I had that book with me to one of the tractor pulls, and I just sat in my dad's Blazer, and I just read, and I'd never read. I'm not a reader. And I just read that book cover to cover in the span of that tractor pull because I just didn't want to be there. So I'm like, fuck it, I'll read Bernie Mac's ass life in one book. And the whole theme of that book was very similar, which is he lived a very hard life. He grew up in poverty. He didn't have a dad. It was literally just his mom working just very low paying minimum wage jobs, trying to support,
make things work.
I don't know how many kids, at least 2 or 3 kids. And talking about how the excerpt in the front of the book is this story about how he like saw her and she was like sobbing because she couldn't afford to like pay rent or something, right?
Yeah.
And then she watched a clip of Bill Cosby performing, and it just like
made her laugh.
Made her laugh, right? And that's when Bernie Mac was like, "Oh, I'm going to be a comedian."
Yeah.
And maybe if I can make you laugh enough, maybe you'll never cry again.
Yeah.
Oh,
dude,
shit,
that rips.
Yeah.
So those comedian books. I'm not a big reader either, but like listening to Segura's book.
Yeah.
Or I'd like to play alone, please. And then Joey Diaz's book.
Hey, dog.
Tremendous. Oh my God. That book is 3 different books in one.
Really?
It is his childhood.
Okay.
With like his mom and like what she was doing and how he lived life.
Yeah.
And then it kind of ends with her dying.
Yeah.
And then
dropping dead.
The middle of the book is his life in being a criminal.
Okay.
And then it kind of ends with him finding comedy. And then the end of it is his stand-up life.
Okay.
Like what he's doing now.
Yeah.
And that just so many hardships that man went through. And I was like, man, I can do comedy. If this guy's like living through his mom dying and like being around drugs and all these terrible things and then going to prison and kidnapping somebody and then be like, I'm going to make jokes about it. I was like, man, that's so wild.
Yeah, I feel like, and this is something that I think I felt, but I didn't really know how to appreciate on like a conscious level until recently. Just like how, and I was talking about this with somebody last night about improv. It's like you really like. I feel like you go through life and you don't really appreciate like the actual value that something like stand up or improv can really bring to you. But like. And so it's like, there's a part of me that's like, like I can't do this for a living. It's not a real fucking job. I'm like, what value am I really providing? But also a lot, actually. Yeah. I mean, this is like comedy or like laughter. Like it's kind of the way we get through things. Yeah. And especially if you've had a lot of, trauma or bad shit happen to you, it's like sometimes that's all you got. Yeah. It's just funny things to distract you.
The one of the things that keeps me, I'm not gonna say keeps me going. I love comedy and I'm gonna keep doing it. Even if I was bombing every night, I would keep doing it. Yeah. Just having those people you don't know come up to you after a set and be like, "Man, you did great. I love this joke." Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Man, that's cool."
You like that one?
Yeah. To leave, and it's to the point now that I'm like. People in the non-comedians have like, I'll do the Caravan and then I'll do a Louisville Comedy Club and they'll be like, "Man, I saw you at the Caravan and you did this joke. It was great." And I'm like, I left an impression on some. So that is really kind of like, really makes me want to just keep going.
Because it's like real. It's like in real time you're seeing that you are having an impact on a person's life, even if it's just for like a couple of minutes. Yeah. The fact that you're seeing that impression that you're making.
Yeah, it's so enriching just to know, because I think I go back to me the night my parents separated. Yeah. Just watching Kreischer and being like, "Oh, I'm okay." And so thinking like maybe they're going through something bad and I could do for them what he did for me. Yeah. And it kind of like makes it this full circle moment where I'm like, I guess paying it forward would kind of be a decent term. Yeah. Be like, yeah, this is worth it.
So let me ask you this. So you said you're 24, right? Yeah. Dude. Oh, first of all, let me just say, I'm so happy that you decided to do this now. Yeah. Right? One of my biggest regrets will always be that I didn't start this soon. Because I'm 34, right?
Really?
Yeah.
Did not know that. I thought we were like the same age.
No, we're not.
Okay. The Ninja Turtle bit makes a little more sense now. It was more 9. I was born in 2000.
You mean Michael Bay's Ninja Turtles, right?
Yeah. Dude, I was thinking of the animated one in 2003. That was the one I was thinking about. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Totally missed that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
But okay. So what was I going to say? Oh, so here's what I was going to ask. So are you, like, do you have any like aspirations to do it for a living, or are you just like, fuck it, I just want to do it to do it?
100%.
Okay.
Do I want to do it? I think I did my first 2 sets. Okay. And I'm going to tell this story on my dad. Okay. The first set I ever did, it was June 6th, 2023. Okay. I had been going to stand up for exactly 1 year. June of 22, I started going to open mics.
Okay.
June of 23, I started doing open mics.
I see. Okay. So you'd been going.
I had been going for a long time.
Yeah.
And I always had a buddy that went with me. Me and him would always go. The first Tuesday of every month, we're going to Comedy Off Broadway.
Okay.
And I wasn't going to tell him. I was like, I'm going to go up. And I did. I wasn't going to tell him, kind of surprise him and just be like, I'm going to go up. He got moved to third shift like 3 days before.
Oh, fuck.
So I was like, shit. I'm with my dad one day, and we're just riding, and I said, hey, I'm going to go to that open mic tomorrow in Lexington. He's like, well, and my dad works in real estate mostly, and he does a lot of stuff, honestly.
That sounds like it.
He was like, he's like, oh, I'll go with you. I got to go work on this house. And he's like, if you'll come help me finish painting this room, I'll be with you tomorrow. I just need to get ahead. I said, well, I'm getting on stage tomorrow. And I watched him like physically like move, and he's like, we're going. We're definitely going. And so at Comedy Off Broadway, they will sit the comedians separate.
Okay.
They have their own little corner.
Yeah.
And I told him, I was like, I'm going to sit separate. You're going to sit. And he, like, I didn't tell him where to sit or anything, but he sat like in the back of the room, dead on to the stage.
Okay.
And he was literally
nice that he was nice enough to not sit in front of the stage.
Oh, he knows how I was. I would have been freaked out. The lights were too bright for me to see him.
Okay.
But I sat separate, and you had like some cool people. We're like, it's your first time. You're gonna do great. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So I do my set, and it was a first time 3 minute. I got one laugh, and that was all I wanted. I got one laugh.
Yeah.
And I got off stage, and my dad texts. And my dad's one of those guys that like he leaves during the third quarter. Like he does not stay for the final score.
Yeah.
Which I am too. And he messages me after like 2 or 3 more comics. He's like, you ready to go? And I said, yeah, I want to watch this one person. And he goes, well, I'm going to go ahead and go outside. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And I remember walking after that comedian. I forget who it was. I walked outside, and my dad was standing there. And he had this look on his face. Mm-hmm. And it was this weird mix between like pride and also like this I don't know how to explain it, but it was like, I just remember walking up to him, and he just goes, well, you did a lot better than I thought you were going to do.
Wow.
Because I read it on his face, like he knew I was going to have to chase this.
Yeah.
So after like the second show, I wrote this little like 10 goals out. And like the last goal, the 10th goal, is to headline Rupp Arena in Lexington.
Well, okay.
So that's like 40 years down the road, 50 years down the road. But that's where I've seen Kreischer and Gabriel Iglesias, and that's the place that I want to end at.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're all in.
I'm all in. For sure, all in.
Yeah. And you have to be.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I fully respect the people who are like, this just gets me out of the house 2 or 3 times a month. I fully respect those people. And those people come at it so lax that they're almost some of the funniest people.
Yeah.
And those people who find it later in life, they're just like, I'm an empty nester and I need something to do.
Yeah.
They're just so easygoing about it. Usually they're so much funnier.
Right.
And where I'm like...
Because life experiences kind of help them to some extent with perspective.
And so I'm almost jealous of that.
Yeah.
Just because I'm like, man, you've been doing this 6 months less than me.
Yeah.
And to me, Lynn Benson, I think, has been doing it around the same amount of time I have.
Okay.
I think she and I are close.
Yeah.
But to me, Lynn is on like that she's like on the next level above me. Like she's hostable, like hosting.
Yeah.
Like, I think she could feature. And I'm like, man, she's like my favorite person to come to Louisville to see.
Okay.
And, but yeah, that's been just so interesting to see other people and how they handle it.
Yeah. That's cool, man. I mean, it's like, and that's another really beautiful aspect of the art.
Yeah.
It's really hard to say that without making a joke about it.
I call it the industry. That's what I call it.
The industry.
Because people say art, and I'm like, it's. I have a tough time putting, which I guess it's like music is art, and like Irvine. I don't know if you know Tyler Childers.
Yeah.
Tyler Childers lives in Irvine.
Oh wow! Okay.
And then one of the Backstreet Boys is from Irvine.
Oh shit! Okay.
So like music is huge in Irvine.
Yeah.
And it's very like it's not like pop country, but it's like very like the folk storytelling country.
Okay.
So to me, that is art. And like, I go up on stage and make dick jokes. I'm like, this cannot be in the same category. I won't let it.
Well, you're telling stories just about your penis.
Yeah.
And all of its, antics.
I'm going to put my Forrest Gump being on Epstein's Island in the same category as Shake the Frost by Tyler Childers. I'm like, I can't do that.
Well, you could try, though.
I could try.
Yeah. Well, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're going to call it now.
Yeah.
This has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming.
I thank you for having me. This is great.
Is there anything? You want to plug anything? Is there, what are you on Instagram? You got any channels?
I'm Jericho Puckett. My TikTok's kind of my main thing.
Oh, really? Okay.
Jericho Puckett,
Oh,
and it's
just
I post just little clips once every 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, but you got to be on TikTok.
Got to be on TikTok.
Yeah,
TikTok and Instagram's kind of where I keep up with my dates. And stuff like that. Those are kind of the 2 big things, and that's where if anybody out there who like knows me wants to see me, though, at Jericho Puckett. And I'm sure the video title or the title of this will have my name in it, so you can just at that name and you'll find me.
Okay, fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Yeah.
See you guys. Take it easy.
All right.
Oh, I hated I said that. Take it easy.